Okay, so today we are going to be talking about specifically the triggers that have led to 1860 and the Civil War in the United States. Now, as we studied before, specifically slavery was a big issue leading to 1860. It is what most people would say is the main cause of the Civil War. However, there are many other triggers and reasons for that, but slavery was the biggest one. It was an issue from the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the American Revolution, and it has continued now for the last 100 years in the US. So, first, I'm going to talk about it's 1860. Abraham Lincoln has just become president. And one of the biggest things that was a reason for the separation of the Union, the country, as you know, the Union separated, and we had the northern states being the Union United States of America, and then the southern states who were pro-slavery were in the Confederacy. So those were mainly Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, any basically southern state that depended on the slaves for their industry. In the north, we had in New York, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, we had these massive factories, massive industries. And there were a lot of people who wanted all the slaves to come up here, work in the factories, and they freed them up here in the north. You had we talked about Harriet Tubman and her Underground Railroad coming up to north, Frederick Douglass leading up to this moment. And in the south, you had these big cotton plantations, farming, tobacco, corn, and they were the leading agricultural industry in the US. And they needed these slaves to basically give them free labor and make money for the plantation owners. So first thing that happened was the election itself. The Confederacy was before they separated, the Confederacy was very mad at Abraham Lincoln for not campaigning at all in the South. He spent majority of his time in the North campaigning, and to them it was a massive slap in the face. Could you imagine today a president not going to visit Texas, to not go and visit Florida for their campaign and talk to people or meet with them, answer questions? No. But that was a thing that Abraham Lincoln didn't. It was a massive thing of contention. And then once they finally separated, because they knew that Abraham Lincoln will most likely be interested in freeing and ending slavery, they separated. So you have a lot of things driving the lead to the Civil War. Yes, slavery is a big one, but it's also this fight for industry between the North and the South. It's these progressive groups like the abolitionists who were against slavery, the prohibitionists who later will make their mark in the U.S. With ending alcohol consumption, and women's rights groups. So you have a lot of factors moving closer and closer to this moment in history. And it's important to know that this didn't just happen overnight. This trigger, or this moment in the Civil War in the United States, was built up, and several other events happened, bleeding Kansas, which we'll talk about in the next lesson, and just why it matters that it's not all about slavery. Slavery is the big picture here, but it's not all that went down or happened leading to 1860.